So it's September, and that means a new month and a new TBR. What's on my TBR for September, you may ask? It's these. Starting off first, The Mercy of the Gods by James S.A. Corey. Now this is actually two authors in one working under the same pen name, and I was lucky enough to get this fancy signed copy, and as you can see, two distinct signatures. Very cool. Admittedly, I haven't read their other work. I have the fancy special editions of like their first 3 books that my wife got me for Christmas. Haven't read them, but I've heard a lot of good things. I've heard a couple of bad things also. Some people are not fans of the book from what I've heard, and the other reviews I've watched, but it seems like that stems from personal preference more than anything, and that's why here we talk subjectively. So objectively they seem like fantastic books, subjectively may not be for you, and I think that is strongly the case with this book also. Who is this book for? People who love hard sci-fi, people who love multiple POVs, people who love third-person writing, people who watched a lot of sci-fi channel and space documentaries as a kid. So if you were the kind of kid who couldn't get enough of Bill Nye the Science Guy and all the documentaries about exoplanets where they showed fun animations of alien planets and alien species and what life could look like on other planets, this is 100% for you. This satisfies the inner curiosity of my space-obsessed child. Well, of the space-obsessed child that I was. Now I'm a space-obsessed adult. Admittedly, the book is a little bit of a slow burn. In the beginning, it's going to be a lot of hard sci-fi, a lot of biology jargon, and you're going to be super confused as it jumps between like 6 different POVs. It dives very heavily into like the bureaucratic nightmare that researching is and getting funding for research projects and what the behind the scenes of science kind of looks like. It speeds up a lot more about maybe, I'm going to say a quarter to 1/3 of the way through the book. We'll go with 1/3. And at that point, you start to get a lot more like glimpses at cool, fun aliens. The research project these guys are doing starts to kick off. And oh, I just forgot to mention what it's about. Broad from memory, not reading the description, what the book is about. It follows a group of scientists who are working on a super important project. Aliens invade their planet Igene? I'm really bad at pronouncing a lot of the names in this book. Imagine a fantasy book with high fantasy names, but in a sci-fi setting. Kind of the vibe of this. There's a lot of vowel-ridden names that are very long and complicated, and probably super subjective to pronunciation. But anyways, the book follows these scientists. Aliens invade. They're doing super important work, and the aliens go, "Hey, we want super important people doing super important work on our ship. Come join us." And they do. And they have to prove their usefulness to these advanced alien species. And don't worry, there are no spoilers there. That is pretty much all within the description right here. Who's gonna DNF this book? People who don't like hard sci-fi, people who don't like multiple POVs, people who don't like third person, and people who don't really have the stomach for a slow burn book. Anyways, I am about halfway through this book right now. I absolutely burned through my August TBR, which was The Bright Sword and The Will of the Many. Both fantastic books, both reviews are up. The Will of the Many was a little bit of an older book. The Bright Sword was a newer book. Both were absolutely fantastic, at the top of my favorites lists. And so I burned through those way faster than I thought I would. Ended up starting this about a week before September started. Halfway through, fantastic. Cannot wait to get through this. Review will be up for this soon. Second book, Burn by Peter Heller. And as you can see, I have yet another fancy signed first edition copy with the signature right there. Hopefully it's worth some money someday so I can sell it. No, just kidding. I would never sell it. I would love it and cherish it forever, and it would always stay as an heirloom on my family bookshelf, for sure. Anyways, so quick overview about what this book is about. Essentially, once again, I'm going from memory here. 2 buddies go on their like annual hunting camping trip. They come back from that. The world is an absolute shambles. There's like roving bands of war gangs, I guess, going around. Streets are on fire. Things have been bombed. Society is not as they left it when they went on their trip. I loved the sound of this because it's archery season here in Colorado. Me and my buddy, we always go camping and fly fishing and hiking during this time of the year. And every now and then we're sitting around the campfire and we go, haha, what if the world were in shambles when we came back and we had to fight for our lives? Well, this answers that question. And that's a weirdly niche experience. If you're a man who also talks about those things around the campfire with your boys, let me know. I feel like that has to be a universal experience. Anyways, who is this book for? As far as I'm aware from reading the first couple of pages, it's third person. So, who's going to read this book? People who loved Hatchet as a kid, people who love the outdoors, people who love dystopian, apocalyptic settings, and people who like third-person storytelling from what seems like one, maybe two perspectives. I haven't gotten too far into it. People who are going to DNF this book. People who don't care about the political climate, people who didn't like Hatchet as a kid, people who don't like third-person storytelling, and people who are not interested in dystopian apocalyptic settings. Easy enough, very straightforward. I am super excited to get started on this after Mercy of Gods. The last book of September, and 3 books is ambitious for me, but none of these are super massive. As you know, I have school and everything else going on. So third book, The Daughter's War by Christopher Buehlman. This is slightly older. It came out in June. I try to focus on new releases, but I don't always do that because time gets the best of me most of the time. Christopher Buehlman is a must-buy author for me personally. It's just an absolute favorite. As soon as I read his book, Between Two Fires, which there is a review up for, I gave it like an 8.5 or 9 out of 10. As soon as I read that, I was like, holy cow, I will never not read a Christopher Buehlman release ever again. That held true with The Black Tongue Thief. Fantastic book, never did a review for it. I read it way before I did this. So, the prequel/sequel just came out, The Daughter's War, which focuses on the Spanth female character. I forgot her name because it's been a while, and it is essentially her backstory as she is relating it to Kinch, the main character in The Black Tongue Thief, and it focuses on, as it says, the Daughter's War. And one thing I've absolutely loved about Christopher Buehlman and the fantasy world he has built within these 2 books is the magic system. First and foremost, there's these things where people will get magic symbols or things or creatures tattooed on them, and then they can just manifest their tattoos into the real world. Super cool, super unique. And then the way the thief's magic works in the Black Tongue Thief is just chef's kiss. It is so fun, it is so unique, it's so refreshing, and it's honestly just an easily digestible story. You might shy away from it if you're not a fan of like violence and gore, because Christopher Buehlman absolutely never spares the audience the ick of what real combat feels like and how violent a lot of these fantasy encounters are. Another thing I've loved about his books, goblins. The goblin is usually the cannon fodder, establishing the main character type of monster, and they are just meant to be like, oh, boop, that was a goblin, now he's dead, goodbye, see you later, Stinky. And in these books, goblins are disgusting, they're terrifying, and after you read the first book, The Black Tongue Thief, you're gonna be like, you know what? I hate goblins too. They are disgusting. We should get rid of them. I am super excited for this one. People who are going to DNF this book, people who might not have the stomach for some of the violence and gore in these books, because from memory, I know Buehlman doesn't shy away from anything. So people who aren't a fan of violence, people who don't want to follow a first-person viewpoint, people who might shy away from dark fantasy, people who are going to finish it, pretty much the opposite of all of that. If you love first-person stories, limited POVs, dark fantasy, and an author who doesn't shy away from the dark in dark fantasy, then this is absolutely for you. But that's the end of my September TBR. If you have any new books you're looking forward to that come out this month, drop them in the comments. Let me know. Let's have a discussion about it, because I am horrible at keeping track of new releases. Often I walk into my local bookshop, there's a new book, and I go, oh, I'm gonna read that. So that's kind of how I keep track of new releases. What was your best book of August? What's your most what book are you excited to read in September? Let me know. And once again, thank you for using the time to watch this. I appreciate it. Thanks.